Hello everyone, and welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today, let's read an interesting sci-fi story titled Gateway and written by Christine Amsden. Let's begin, shall we? My name is Estelle Stevenson, and I was born on the starship Prelude almost 18 years ago. Not that years had the same meaning for me that they did for my parents, who, in their youth, could mark a year by the passing of the seasons. For me, a year was simply the passage of 365 consecutive days, and days were only marked by the clock. Living my whole life on board a starship caused me to miss out on many of the things the adults took for granted, like sunsets and snowfall. My parents were Jerry and Emma Stevenson, both doctors of philosophy and engineering, made famous by their work in developing portholes, which were supposed to save Earth from overpopulation problems. A person could step through one of two connected gateways and instantaneously end up stepping out of the other gateway. They work by using the force of gravity and the presence of parallel universes. Gravity is the force that attracts objects to one another based on their mass and distance from one another. Parallel universes exist alongside our own, moving in their own time streams. But we cannot perceive them because they exist in a four-dimensional world. There are an infinite number of these universes, and many of them are completely empty of anything whatsoever. When two objects are placed in an empty universe, gravity will cause them to find one another and cling together. The back ends of each of the two gateways that make up the porthole exist in an empty universe. The portholes will not separate in that universe because there is no matter to create enough gravity to pull them apart. The front ends of each gateway can be placed in this universe as far apart as we want them. The mission of the Prelude was to establish a gateway on another world. One end of the porthole was already set up on Earth, while the other was in the storage hold of our ship, where it would remain until it could be placed on our destination planet. The mission of the people on board the Prelude, aside from setting up the other end of this porthole, was to begin a colony that could slowly process a massive influx of the excess population of Earth through the gateway. 20 years ago, 500 colonists set out on this mission. They were expected to have children on the voyage, although the exact number of children anyone could have was strictly monitored. I was the first child born on the colony ship, and the first baby ever to be born in space. Most of the colonists wanted to see if any harm would come to the babies before having their own. After everyone saw that I was healthy, the ship's population increased dramatically. Most of the children of the Prelude were a year or so younger than myself. My parents told me early on that the other colonists were a little silly because the real test will come when we landed on a planet and I was exposed to normal gravity for the first time. Would my heart be able to handle the extra weight? I was not weightless on the Prelude, but the gravity created by rotating cylinders of the ship was only about half of Earth's. A mere 20 years into the journey, the Prelude found itself in orbit around an inhabitable planet. My first impression of New Earth was somewhat mixed. The sight of sky above me and ground below was a tremendous sight, but nothing looked like I had expected it to. I had always imagined a world like the pictures I've seen, but this world was nothing like them. The atmosphere was a breathable nitrogen-oxygen mix, but almost no life forms had evolved on its surface. There were microorganisms in the soil, making the planet capable of supporting plant life, but we would be completely responsible for cultivating the land. The place looked barren. I felt very heavy on New Earth, although I was told that this planet still only had 80% of Earth's normal gravity. I did not suffer any ill effects from the increased gravity, although in the time we spent on the planet's surface, I never quite adjusted to my increased weight. Exercise was very difficult, and I could not walk very far without running out of breath. But the human body is remarkably adaptable, and I was able to cope. Had I remained, I think I would eventually have adjusted. Before long, we had a small village established on the planet's surface. My parents had the responsibility of setting up the gateway so that communication could be re-established with Earth. The porthole system was our only means of communication with Earth, since no other powerful enough system had ever been developed. I watched my parents as they worked, full of questions as always. Fortunately, my parents were infinitely patient and enjoyed sharing their knowledge with anyone who was interested, particularly their only daughter. They probably wanted me to be just like them, but since I loved them very much and liked what they did, I didn't mind. "We're ready for testing," Mother said one day. The gateway was impressive, standing 15 feet tall, and it was fully large enough for trucks to pass through unhindered. Eventually, a road would be built through the porthole, but for now, it was just a gigantic circle supported by massive steel beams. The middle of the gateway was a swirl of grey, much like smoke. Nothing on the other side could be seen. The first tests involved sending an inanimate object, an ordinary rubber ball, through the porthole. The people on Earth should have been constantly monitoring from their end and be ready to toss the ball back. After the ball was sent through, we waited with bated breath for its return. 2 hours later, we were still waiting. We hoped that the people on the other end of the porthole were simply off their guard, not expecting us to have found another planet so quickly. But it was also possible that the porthole had failed to work. In that case, our ship full of colonists would take our seeds, seedlings, and animal embryos and start over. I could see the disappointment in my parents' eyes as the time slipped by. What could have gone wrong? The portholes had been tested on Earth and Mars before leaving, and had worked perfectly then. What was different now? Ouch! The ball had been thrown back through the gateway, hitting a technician in the back of the head. The ball had been thrown with a tremendous amount of force, and a small lump could be seen on the back of the man's head. One of his co-workers helped the injured man to make his way to a medical tent. "I guess they got carried away," Mother said dubiously. "We better move on to the next round of tests," Father said. The next round of tests involved sending animate objects through the porthole to make sure they came back through alive. In anticipation of needing live animal subjects, the ship had adopted some puppies and kittens to be enjoyed by everyone during the journey through space. The oldest dog, a lazy old Labrador named Jones, was volunteered for the mission. He did not seem to want to go into the smoky gateway, but a particularly large technician managed to push him through the opening. Then we waited. We waited for a very long time. This time there was genuine concern about what was taking so long, since the people on the other side were now alerted to our presence. At first, we thought that Jones was reluctant to come back through, but as time went on, our trepidation increased. If Jones had not survived, they should have thrown another rubber ball through the porthole, but there was no response through the gateway at all. After several long hours, most of the crew decided to turn in for the night. The sky was growing dark, and little could be accomplished when everyone was exhausted. A skeleton crew stayed behind to watch the gateway while the rest of us went to bed. Permanent dwellings had not yet been erected, so I slept in a tent atop an air mattress. It was remarkably uncomfortable, although that could have also been due to the excess of gravity. I slept poorly, and halfway through the night I gave it up and took a walk. With the sky lit by 2 full moons, I could see clearly. As I stared into the night sky, I saw a sight that made my heart skip a beat. Some kind of creature was flying overhead. It had long, leathery wings and looked like a cross between a bat and a pterodactyl. As I watched, it swooped down towards the gateway on a collision course for one of the watching technicians. The woman screamed loudly enough to alert the camp, but her screams were suddenly silenced when the creature ripped off her head with its huge teeth. I had never seen such a gory sight before, and my first reaction was to freeze in terror, just before losing my dinner. Meanwhile, the woman's screams had caused the rest of the camp to rise and pour out of their tents. The creature grabbed the woman's body in its massive claws and disappeared through the gateway. But the attack was not over. As soon as the first creature disappeared, 10 more flew through the gateway and circled it from above, as if guarding the opening. Not knowing what else to do, I ran to my parents. "What's happening?" I asked. "What are they? Had Earth been attacked since you left?" My parents were also terrified and were slow to answer. Finally, my mother said, "I have no idea. Maybe they were attacked. Or maybe." She trailed off, and my father decided to finish for her. Maybe another race developed the same technology. Maybe the other end of this porthole no longer goes to Earth. "What do they want?" I asked, somewhat stupidly. How could my parents know what they wanted? "We need to close the porthole!" This came from the captain of the Prelude. Until further notice, he would also be the leader of the colony. Just then, a loud screech erupted from the throat of one of the creatures, who had been struck by a shot from a colonist. It fell to the ground, apparently dead. At least we now knew that they could be killed. Unfortunately, we also now knew that the creatures had weapons of their own. Grasped in their small, claw-like hands were weapons that fired streams of white-hot light. The creatures were deadly accurate shots too. Before we could even get ourselves organized, 5 colonists were dead. "Kill the rest of them!" cried the captain, taking out his weapon and joining the fray. The battle was intense. I was too stunned to really take in many of the details, but when it was over, all 10 creatures were on the ground, and 25 colonists were dead. My parents ran to the gateway controls, and frantically tried to take it offline before any more creatures could come through. The captain yelled to his first officer, "Evacuate the colonists! Get as many people back to the ship as you can!" Then he started gathering men to guard the gateway in case more creatures came through. About 200 people remained on board the Prelude at that time, keeping it operational and watching through the precious seeds and embryos. Everyone else, nearly 800 in all, including most of the children, had begun staking their claims on the planet's surface. There was enough room on the shuttles to take about 300 people up to the ship, and it would take an hour for them to return. "Get on the shuttles!" I found myself screaming at the people, milling about aimlessly. I did not bother to collect my personal items. I went directly to one of the shuttles, urging on a group of dawdling colonists ahead of me. Then I heard an ear-splitting screech in the air above. I looked behind me long enough to see a stream of the creatures coming through the porthole. The armed colonists tried to take them down, but they kept coming. Dozens, probably hundreds by the time it was over. I will never be sure, because I had reached one of the shuttles just as they began pouring out. "Get in!" All the colonists finally understanding the danger, surged in a frightening wave towards the shuttles. There were 6 shuttles, each with a 50-person capacity, and I would not allow the shuttle pilot to take off until every seat was full. As we rose into the air, one of the bird-like creatures flew towards us and fired its laser weapon at the shuttle, piercing the hull in 2 places where the shot entered and left. A small boy was also struck in the arm, but his injury was not nearly as important at that moment as sealing the holes. The shuttle did not slow, but began its ascent into space. I frantically gathered 3 people that seemed level-headed enough to help me seal the holes. We finished the job as the shuttle rose into the upper atmosphere just in time. With that job behind me, I took the time to look out the window to see how the other shuttles were faring. Every shuttle had made it into the air, although 2 more had been hit. One of those also managed to seal the holes and control the damage, but the other one was damaged beyond anyone's capacity to save it. I watched as the shuttle finally lost its fight to stay in the air and crashed to the ground in a fiery heap. I was not present for the end of the battle on the planet. All I know is that every human died or was captured. When we scanned the area, we found that even the bodies of the dead colonists had been removed to some unknown place, probably the other side of the porthole. 250 colonists managed to escape the planet, including myself. I have no idea what those alien creatures wanted with us, but our small landing party had not been equipped to handle any resistance. In the event that we found an inhabited world, we were supposed to have moved on. Now we would move on, those of us who remained, but with a far grimmer task. Earth was out of our reach, and we had to assume that the hope of humanity rested with the tattered remains of our group. And that concludes this episode of Sci-Fi Stories. We hope you found this story, Gateway, written by Christine Amsden of the United States for the 2003 Clarke-Bradbury International Science Fiction Competition conducted by the ESA, interesting to hear. For more of our stories and other educational content, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until the next story, take care and stay safe. Bye-bye for now.